Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Mo.
And I'm Angelos.
On today's podcast, we sit down with the disruptive entrepreneur himself, Mr. Rob Moore.
Really excited because he shared with us a shed load of great content, talking about book writing, his latest book, I'm Worth More, which is being released on Audible today.
Yep.
We're really excited, and talking to us about how that book is going to change people's lives.
And also, I thought he went quite sort of deep in the interview, and we sort of talked about his transition from maybe being a little bit more of a capitalist to start with, and how that's transitioned to wanting to help a lot of people and educate young people. So really excited about this episode. Hope you enjoy it. Rob, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast again. Second time on Your Success Podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We had a great response last time you were on, so we thought we had to get you back on. So thank you.
So before we dive in on any of the questions, Rob, big congratulations on the launch of your new book, I'm Worth More.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us a little bit about it and why people should get out there and start listening to it?
Yeah, so I've been in business 13 years doing it properly. I mean, 5 years before that, artist, pub landlord, architect, not really getting anywhere. So I guess I've had two careers where one was like a bit of a warm-up and didn't make any money, and then 13 years building Progressive and my brand and other stuff, we've done all right. And so I started writing how-to books, property investing, multiple streams of property income. And then I felt at a point where I'd maybe bought enough properties myself, and we built a training business that actually business transcends property. So I started writing business books like Life Leverage, which is sort of outsourcing and managing your time, and then money, which transcends that again, which is a higher level of abstraction. Money, I mean, who isn't involved in money? And as I got to each level of abstraction, I realized there was an even higher level of abstraction in terms of what I could write, but also what people needed. If you're a property investor, you're going to get down valuations. You're going to get mortgage companies pull finance on you at the last minute. You're going to get JV partners who say they've got the money, and you've done a deal with an estate agent, and then they pull the money, and then you've got to go and eat humble pie to the estate agent. You do joint ventures, you've got to manage refurb teams that are messing you about, blah, blah, blah. And so underneath all of that, generally, is people's self-worth and how they feel about themselves. And if you don't feel good about yourself, then it's going to be very hard to get ahead in business. If you don't feel confident in who you are, it's going to be very hard to charge fair fees, ask for salary raises, etc. If you don't feel good about who you are, it's going to be hard to attract the right clients, the right business partners, the right life partners. You know, when people say, I just want to be appreciated or even loved for who I am, yet they're not showing the world the real them. They're putting on a facade, which social media can exaggerate, of course. So I found that this transcended all the work I'd ever done. And I also felt it was my most important book to write. Because, you know, when people make their first $3,000 in a deal, they feel good. Or when they get to their first $100,000, they feel good. Or when they make their first $1 million, they feel good. Because I've helped people do all those things. But when their confidence turns around and they are able to shine and become the person they always hoped they could be, but they weren't, and often that's going back to our childhood or significant things that have happened to us that have killed our confidence. When you see people it's like the butterfly that spreads its wings, that's an amazing gift to be able to give and also to see, and it feels amazing in people. And I went through that myself. Now, one of the differences between my book and a lot of books in what you might call self-help or non-fiction genre is every single one has been something I've done for a long time, failing at it, and then sort of figured it out, and then maybe even mastered it. I wouldn't say truly mastered it, because you never truly master anything. So that was property, that was leverage, that was money. And the same with self-worth. I wasn't very confident when I was young. I was overweight, so I felt like I got bullied. I felt like I didn't get attention and respect and noticed from people. It was just at the age when we were kind of getting into girls as well. So I was never got any girls. Don't worry, I'm not playing a violin, mate, because I've got a lot of money now, so it's all right. But that did really hurt me. But a lot of it was in my head as well, because I've met some of my school friends since, 20 years later, and they didn't even really know how I felt. And all right, they knew I was overweight, but they didn't really hate me. And it was just, okay, they took the piss. But so I had a lot of that baggage to overcome. And I guess running a business and being, I'm certainly not the biggest celebrity in the world, but I am in the public eye quite a lot. It really benefited me to work on that, kind of forced me to work on that, really. In the property training space, you've got to deal with some critics, and you put yourself out there for people to chop you down. When you become the biggest provider in a space, everyone just wants to peck at you. People judge you when they don't know you. All the things I've heard people say about me. Some of them I wish I was, but a lot of them are just complete nonsense. And so how you feel about yourself, your self-worth is vital. And then the final thing is, it's called Realize Your Value, Unleash Your Potential. And so it's important for me to say to everybody, because I really believe this, no one is broken. No one needs fixing. No one is not good enough. No one doesn't deserve a great life. And so the book's not really about you becoming something different. It's about you honoring the greatness in you, and then finding a way to get it out to the world, whether it's putting it into a book or leveraging social media or starting up a passion or a profession or becoming an amazing parent or, having a good, fulfilling relationship. And where nearly all of my books have had a business, money, property focus, this one is relationships. It's not a relationship book, but, with your partner, with your children, I put some of those experiences in. And, your career, if you want to get pay rises and you want to develop your career. So it's much wider than any of my books. And it's currently number 2 in all books. Nice. Which is annoying. It's got to go.
Get on Audible. What do they need to do, Rob?
Just go to Audible and search "I'm Worth More." My surname is Rob Moore. It's some book about crime that's number 1. Bloody crime! Crime's everywhere. They need to be in my next 2 genres to go to a higher level of abstraction. Yeah, there you go. That would be a good seller. Right. Yeah,
straight up there.
10% commission.
Anyway, cut. Yeah.
Do you think that there's scope to take that concept to sort of a kid's book or some kind of training or education at a younger age, so that rather than having to unwind all of that bad experience for older people, it's actually educating from the beginning?
Yeah. So I really am keen to get to help younger entrepreneurs, people, and underprivileged. And that underprivileged could be in this country, by the way, not necessarily just the third world or the developing world. But I've got a lot of time in my life, and I tend to just do things and don't really think about it. And that has upsides because I've done a lot of things. But the downside is I can create quite a lot of chaos, and I've put myself under quite a lot of pressure this year. We've had our biggest year with 37% up, which when you're in your 14th year, it's pretty hard to do. And I got a lot on. And I kind of love it, but I sometimes do just push myself over that edge where I'm like, whoa, I just need, I need everyone to leave me alone. But I never blame anyone but myself. But I've been getting a lot of migraines recently, and I'm pretty sure it's just because I've overdone it. So that's one. And then 2 is, wouldn't it be easy and great if you could write a book for kids? I could take money for kids. I could take I'm Worth More for kids. But what you teach a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, and an 18-year-old are all different. It's not the same. And I want to get my head around, how do I do that? Because if you write a kid, if I was writing a book for 6-year-olds, I'd basically be writing a book for the parent on the stories to tell the kid. And then if I was writing for, a 10-year-old, when maybe they're getting a bit more socially aware and how their friendship groups, and that's important to them. And then because 14-year-old and then 18-year-old. So I'm either going to write a book for sort of each stage. I'm going to try and figure out the stages. And my kids are 4 and 8, so I haven't got that experience yet. So I'm either going to write a book for each one or one that takes them on a journey. But I sort of had an idea. I don't know if I should say this on a live. I'll say it because I'll either do it or someone will do it better than me. I don't have anything to hide. But I thought I could maybe create like a box set that, that's the stages that like a family could build up together. I've got it in the future, and I think definitely money, and definitely Start Now, Get Perfect Later, and definitely I'm Worth More could be kids. But I want to do it right. And I don't want to jump on a
Yeah.
bandwagon. And I don't want to just repackage one of my books just because it's easy.
One thing I like about you, Robert, I know you're a book writing machine, and we're going to touch on that a little bit later, is that you started
I wish I was a machine and now I didn't have to do it.
Actually, how many books you got in the pipeline? That's
4. I'm writing 4 at the moment. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
Why 4? What am I doing?
You start with nuts and bolts, how to be successful in property, and then you had a few newer additions. And then what I've noticed, like you said earlier, is that you slowly started moving up and abstraction levels and things like that.
Yeah, because I want to reach more people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you feel the personal development, self-help spaces where you're going to be focusing in the future?
Ooh, well, I mean, look, I think I've written, I think it's now 14 books. I probably about 8, maybe 9 have got my name on it, and then others I've co-written, like I co-wrote Mark's books with him, the first one more than the second one. And I've done a few books like that as well. I don't know, I mean, my next 4 books, one is called Opportunity. One is called Reinventing Yourself, which I'm writing with Joe Ratner. One is called Increase Your Fees with Ease. And the other one I'm going to keep to myself for now. I've got a list of probably about 15 books in my Evernote that I think I'd like to write at some point.
Do you enjoy the process, or is it just that it's in your head and you have to get it out?
I have a love-hate relationship with the process.
Yeah.
So I love starting a book. I love the idea of it. And then when I'm halfway through it, I'm like, why have I done this to myself again? But the fact that it is such a labor of love, and it's such a battle of your demons and your procrastination and your distraction and your crazy scattered mind, which is been made harder by social media, which is always demanding your attention. At the end of it, there's a great sense of achievement. Yeah. So as much as I'd love it to be easy, it's not meant to be easy. I think raising kids and writing books are 2 of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But yeah, I mean, I want to write more business books. I definitely want to write a book on marketing at some point. I want to write a general business and entrepreneurship book. I'm going to write a collation of all my podcasts one day, but I want to get the theme right. I don't just want it just to be, here are a load of my podcasts in a book. I want a theme which will have good conceptual relevance. But for me, this is really important. You know, there are great authors out there, like people like Malcolm Gladwell, who could do a research project. So like he wrote David and Goliath, which obviously didn't experience that as a story. And he did a research project. And I admire that. It's not really me. My research project is what I do in my life. And I feel like that gives me great credibility when I write a book because I've actually done it. So let's see what I do for the next 50 years and then what I decide to write about.
Great, we look forward to it. You mentioned earlier, which leads quite elegantly into the next question about being very busy and having lots going on. Obviously, you travel a lot, you do masterminds abroad, you spend time with your children, you play golf with your son, you've got this 10x Property Super Conference on this weekend, you run training companies, and you've got property yourself and you're developing more property. So how do you fit it all in?
Making me feel sick.
Sorry, and the books, yeah. How have you partitioned that in your life, and how do you cope with that amount of work and how do you prioritize it?
So I compartmentalize my diary very rigidly. I find that in life, many things, maybe all things, exist in a paradox. And one of the paradoxes is I hate rules and I hate being sandwiched or pigeonholed into doing or being something. But if I don't have a diary structure where I'm told what to do and when to do it, my day would just be a random mess. So I'm getting up at like 4:15 at the moment. I don't know why I'm getting up so early, but I normally get up about 5. But from 5 until... If I'm not doing much, I have periods in my life. I mean, if anyone looked at me now, they'd think, bloody hell, Rob's all over the place and really busy. But I've had periods for months where I've done virtually nothing. And I tend to seesaw between. Work-life balance for me is... I was speaking to Shah Wasman yesterday and she called it work-life blend. And I thought that was a better way of looking at it. How do you blend all the things that you do? Because if Bobby's got a world championships and I want to go in America for a month, that's what I want to do. That's not work-life balance, because for 1 month, it's just golf. So it's how do you blend? And I'm also quite an obsessive personality, whereby if I do one thing, I'll do it a lot. And then I'll probably burn myself out or bore myself out of it. And then I want to do something completely different.
So how do you keep yourself on the straight and narrow then, Rob? Do you have peers or mentors that keep you on track, or is it just self-discipline, or do you rely on the diary?
I think it's a bit of all of those. So I have this very structured diary, and I wrote about how someone else can do it in my book, Routine Equals Results, which I've tested when I have my coffee, when I have my breaks, when I have my meetings, when I have my visionary or idea creation time. In there is when I go to the gym, when I have dinner with my kids, when I spend time with my wife. At the moment, there's not much sort of time for me, but I love business, so I'm okay with that. But at some point, I'll need to spend a bit of time doing a few things for me, whatever them. Although the podcasts, this isn't really work, is it? Let's be honest. And I went. That's not me knocking the quality of your work, by the way. Well, I have a podcast as well, so I can say it. But I went down to see Katie Piper yesterday. I went to see Rosemary Conley. I'm going to see Theo Paphitis. And, I'll have 2 or 3 hours in the back of the car, getting a bit of work done, time on my own, which I just really value nowadays. And then I'll go and meet cool people and hang out and talk fun stuff. So that's not really work.
Yeah.
So if you would say to me, what would you like to do as a hobby? I'd probably say do a podcast. And I get to do that as a hobby, so that's cool. So the compartmentalising my diary in a very rigid way, which has been tested and proven to work for me as an individual, which wouldn't work for either of you. And then every 6 months changing it when your levels of busyness go up, or when you get more staff and you can leverage more stuff or whatever. The second thing is I'm pretty good at leverage. I have a lot of staff now, I have 80 odd staff, or when I say it's a lot for me. So, I've got a lot of people who can get stuff done. And then, of course, you've just got to be good at going, what's the most important thing that I can do right now? What is my highest key result area and income generating task, and blocking everything else out? And I have moments when I'm good at that, and I have moments when I kind of struggle with that if I've got a lot of overwhelm or a lot of distractions.
I'm going through a lot of, so is Mo in his own business, we're going through a lot of growth at the moment, quite rapid growth. And you're constantly looking in the future, right? So in X amount of months, I'm going to have X amount of income and X amount of equity, and we're going to have bigger...
When.
And it's always in the future, Rob, and you think, sometimes you just can think, am I missing the moment? And I look at yourself, and you're constantly growing, and you're constantly pushing the boundaries and disrupting. Do you ever see an end to it? Or
no, there's no end. I am like the Westie that humps a tree at 500 miles an hour, and that's just going to be me until I'm 97. I've accepted it. I've meditated on it. I know it. I went to the doctors for these migraines, and he's like, I've never met anyone so fidgety, on it, restless. You're obviously one of these type A characters, and blah, blah. And he read me in no time. And I had to have I've turned 40, so I paid for a full body check, because I think it's important. And he said, everything is perfect, but you have the fastest heartbeat I think I've ever heard in my life. Resting. I have really low blood pressure, but a really fast heartbeat. And the thing is, I get my kicks out of that as well. And I have to accept the fact that from time to time I get the odd migraine, or I'm a bit restless or whatever. It's me, it's who I am. He did diagnose meditation. And I know that from times I do need to disconnect, slow down, and be more present. It's an area I need to work on. But it's also, I am who I am. And I just got to balance it, not getting addicted to technology, not getting addicted to the next thing, which is quite a drug. So for me, I probably just need to temper it down a bit, but I don't want to lose who I am. So I'll probably just, my wife's getting a Pilates and yoga instructor to come to the house once a week. And I said, yeah, good idea. And then I thought, fucking, that's going to be so boring, man. I'm like, why am I doing this? I said, can we do it every month? And she's like, it's not enough. But it's going to force me. It should, to stand still for an hour. I don't stand still ever. And then practice some meditation and put that in. Yeah, I think that's my area where I've got to work on.
So looking back at Rob Moore from 13, 15 years ago, when you really started gearing up aggressive and all the other things that you've done, are you a very different character from then? As in, you mentioned about your resting heartbeat and your low blood pressure and the constant need to create things. Is that because it's a genetic thing? Is it because you've always been that way? Or do you think you've just put so much pressure on yourself over the past decade that you have to keep outdoing yourself?
I don't think it's genetic. I don't feel like, I think where it stems from is my childhood, where I got into art from an early age. So my dad always said, look, son, you're really creative, you're really artistic. And he gave me that belief. I don't believe I was born with that. I believe that I started drawing when I was 2 or 3 years old. And my dad edified that I had some skill. And I then took on that belief. And then I drew a lot. So when you're early at school, you get things to draw. But I draw at home for 2 or 3 hours. I draw all the Liverpool players. I draw birds out of the books that my mum had, with all the different birds on it. And, I draw all the animals in the animal books. So I developed a skill. I didn't know I was doing it because I liked doing it. So I think that was where maybe the artistic, creative side came out. But the reality is that in my childhood, I didn't really feel like I got the attention, the respect, the connection, the acceptance from people. And I think that's what I'm always looking for now. Why do I care about, I've had so many books go to number 1. Why does it matter if this one does? It doesn't. If it goes to number 1 or number 2, it doesn't have any impact or bearing on the quality of the book. But it still does mean something to me. Not as much as it used to, which is good. So I'm not governed by it. But I've just accepted the fact that I need to put good work out there and I need it to be received. Now, some people say, oh, well, it doesn't matter. You do what you do. You are who you are. It doesn't matter how it's received. I don't think that's true. I don't think anyone's immune to that, because a measure of good art is not just how you feel it is. It's how it's received. You hang it on a wall. Does someone love it? A critic that you respect or even sometimes criticize you before, and then you get a good review, and that feels good. And lots of bad reviews feel bad. That is human nature. So for me, it is, I have an artistic side. I have a need to keep being filled with recognition of some kind. I feel like the ego side of it, I've mostly got under control because I've done a lot of work on that, because my ego came from fear. It didn't come from power or domination or being the best. It came from fear and not being noticed and not being good enough and not losing and not looking stupid and not being shamed. But that's still ego. And I think the control of one's ego is a constant search and a management. But I suppose 10, 15 years ago, I thought they were weaknesses and failings and flaws of me, which I should hide, which made me broken. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people now in this country and starting to be in the global stage now that's getting good benefit from that. So if my obsessive, relentless, impatient, constant need to start things and build things and create things and make chaos, the world's getting some benefit from that. If it wasn't, I'd have to stop it.
Yeah.
How do you think people become more self-aware and understand that actually that they can't just imitate what you're doing? If they want the success that you've had, they can't just imitate what you're doing. How do they find actually the level that they should be playing at and have more self-awareness?
Yeah,
because there's a lot of fake it until you make it, right? Especially when you look at people on Facebook.
I prefer be it till you see it. I don't believe in fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I think fake it till you make it is something that someone worked out sounds good because it rhymes. And actually, I get what they're saying, but be it till you see it is better, because no one should be a fake. And the word is just not the right word. I guess that's one of the constant life pursuits, is to figure out who you are and to figure out why you were put on this planet and to figure out what you're supposed to do that is going to make you become more fulfilled. And that's going to give you a feeling of worth and society some productive value. And those are linked. So you feel your own worth, you come from a place of being full, therefore you're probably going to produce and create better work. Although in some cases art, there's often that struggle that creates great work. So how does one become more self-aware? Well, a constant learning mindset, I think. They call it the growth mindset. Reading and listening to podcasts and audio books and going on courses and getting mentors from people who are you think self-aware and have written books on self-knowledge and particular areas where you don't like your life, whether it's a lack of confidence or you've manifested something physical, people, company, job that you don't like, trying to learn a way to improve it or to change it. And then from people who've done that, because they're the ones that can teach you. I think the next thing is listening to your feelings and just taking a moment to consider why you react the way you do. And most people react the way they do because of an emotion from the past that was triggered in the present.
But they may not understand it's from the past.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of going, you're a twat, or they're wrong, or that's not fair, or why did they do that to me? Instead go, why do I feel like this? What in me has this triggered? You could go to another full personal responsibility. If you're fully responsible for everything you do, including how you react, then you come from a position of being able to change it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So Rob, I know you've written Life Leverage, great book. One of the things I struggle with is delegating or leveraging others or handing off tasks that don't necessarily correspond with income generating activities, IGAs as you call them, because either they don't care enough or they don't see the bigger picture or they just muck it up or I don't trust them enough or I'm too controlling, whatever it is. How do you get around that?
Yeah, so everything you've just said is what every entrepreneur has to go through. And it's funny because some of the posts, the comments, the podcasts that I get the most feedback on are where I either mess something up or I share about how I mess something up. And the most common thing that people say is, that makes me feel so good that you struggle with that too. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, you should feel good about my good stuff, not my shit stuff. But that's one of the most common things. So everything you've just said is not wrong about you, and it's not something that you can't handle. It's something that is part of being an entrepreneur. And I think when you go, okay, this is part of being an entrepreneur, it's not me, it's how it is. Therefore, you put yourself in a more empowered position to go, okay, how do I work out how to not do that? I mean, if you think about a major hairdresser who maybe has a global brand, was it Paul Mitchell? I don't think that's his real name, but Paul Mitchell, or I guess L'Oreal, or Tony and Guy. One day, they were just cutting someone's hair. And now they may have 1,000 or 10,000 franchises or outlets with people cutting people's hair their way. So every business, every franchise, McDonald's, every franchise, Subway, is proof that how someone made a sandwich or cut hair, anyone can be taught. But there's chaos of letting go, of the process of outsourcing, leveraging, delegating, etc. goes something like this. I'll just do the quick version. Number one is you have to have a desire to grow, because if you don't want to grow, you don't need to. And in some areas, you're best just doing it yourself. Like I've got a driver, and at the moment he drives me and a few other people. I should probably have him full time at one point pretty soon, I would have thought, but it suits. And I live really close to work. And he said, I had a fleet, but basically none of the drivers looked after the cars like me. They'd do 5 trips, but the mileage that they'd registered was like 10 trips. So they're using the car for personal use. They're late. They don't care. They don't look after the clients. But that's normal when you're building any business. No one cares as much as you until you care about someone so that they'll care about your business. So you've got to have a desire to grow, number one. Number two is you have to have a level of training to take someone from not knowing what you do to being able to do what you do. And some people expect someone to walk in and just know what to do. But they might know what to do, but they might not know how to do it your way. Now, sometimes your way is necessary, but sometimes your way is not as good as their way. And sometimes you've got to, know that. So that's the third thing then, is you've got to get out of their way. You've got to let them make mistakes. You've got to let them, yes, follow your system, but maybe have a little bit of freedom, and maybe they could improve. You've got to have a vision, because no one's going to go and want to work for you if they can't grow or progress their career. And people want to be part of something important and special and revolutionary. So if you share a vision of where they can go, they're not just your assistant or apprentice. They actually could head an office or head a division or head a country one day. Because I bet you some of the early staff in Paul Mitchell or Tony and Guy are running UK or Australia or whatever. So taking them this path, I think sometimes people look at people and go, why are you doing it like that? Why aren't you doing it to my standards? Why aren't you good enough? I've told you 1,000 times, blah, blah, blah. But actually, if you look at someone and go, you're a human being, you're struggling like everybody else. I'd probably mess this up. How can I help you? Make sure I care about you. Make sure I look after you. Then I think you're going to keep people longer. And then as you grow, you go through different layers and levels of that. So just when you think you've got a couple of good staff, they leave and set up in competition, Paula Mitchell, they call it, you grow and then there's chaos and then the culture changes. So it's a constant evolution of that and updating your training and your systems and your mentality and your mindset and your responsibility. So I'd say they're the main elements of transcending being a one-man band to being a proper business owner.
I guess it comes back to what you were saying about ownership as well, right? If someone's not doing the job right, then it's on you as the entrepreneur or the business owner, because you haven't trained them right, or you hired the wrong person.
If you take the onus, if they're making a mistake, it's your fault. And if how do you fix the problem? Give them feedback and support. Now, of course, you also have to sometimes accept the fact if they're not right, and then you have to let them go. But
Cool. Amazing. So I suppose everyone wants to know what's next for Rob Moore.
Do you mean like,
where do you see us
in 10 minutes?
Yeah. Need to go to the bathroom.
Where do you see Rob Moore in, say, 5-10 years' time on your current trajectory?
Well, my current trajectory? Bouncing off some padded walls, dribbling. I've got a pretty clear vision that I want to help as many people on the planet get better financial education, start and scale their business, especially young and underprivileged entrepreneurs. I know I want to keep doing more of the work that I'm doing. And I feel like I was put on this planet to make a difference in people's lives. And I want to try and treat people well and do good things. And I've got loads of goals, I write hundreds of goals a year. But it's not any more clear than that. I don't know how many books I'm going to write. I don't know when I'm going to write them. I want to keep growing Progressive. I want to grow my own personal brand. We're merging some of our companies into one brand just called Progressive. But I'm excited by the fact that I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, because if I had too clear a picture of it, I'd probably get bored of it before I got there. So for me, certain personal metrics are important. I feel like a measure of progress, as well as the bank balance, the number of staff, the size of your communities, the happiness of your clients and your staff, is the people you meet. And I felt like it's kind of seemed to be relative, whereby the more successful I get, I don't want to say higher quality because it's not an elitist thing, but famous people, successful people, in the measure that I would value. Because, by the way, people can be very successful and earn 20 grand a year. I know many celebrities who've got 1, 5, 10 million followers on Instagram, way more than me, but don't earn as much money. And I know people who don't even have a social media account who are billionaires. So I'm not judging, but I know some really cool people. And for me, knowing really cool people is one of the coolest things in life. And I just want to keep that pursuit.
Just very quickly, Rob, before we wrap up, I just want to say, compared to, say, 10 years ago when I I think I first met you at a super conference.
Yeah, one of these events.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And awesome event.
We should go out for dinner.
We should.
10-year anniversary.
I'm sure you spotted me in the crowd, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sitting in the front.
Love you, Rob.
Yeah.
Compared to where you were then, I hope you don't mind me saying this. It's all about property, it's all about results. You're very, very manic. Compared to where you are now, I know you're still quite active in that sphere. But just seeing you grow, you are a lot more, up there, shall we say. You're looking at things in a whole more holistic view as opposed to just the property side of things. So it's really good to see you grow like that. But I can only imagine where you're going to be in another 10 years. You're probably going to be major influence in the personal development sphere, speaking globally. So that's my personal view of where you might end up.
I think it's great because it's inspiring more people. Like you say, you can impact more people if you've got a message that's more general and not specific.
I think also it's important. Nothing exists in a vacuum. So me writing a book in a vacuum, it doesn't make it art, because what if people don't want to read it? And I think what I've been pretty good at, because I spend a lot of time in the communities, is observing and finding out what people want and putting it out there. It's good business practice because it means you can always evolve and you don't become redundant. It's good commercially because if you know people want it, you're going to sell some copies. But it has meaning, and sometimes I think people are a little bit, sometimes look, I'll do what I want because it's what I want to do and it's how I want to express myself, and cool, I'm never going to say to anyone, don't do that. But no one lives in a vacuum, and we're all a product of our environment and the people and the times and the climate of the economy and the climate of the world and everything. And so I like to think my work's always going to be reacting to that. But hopefully reinventing it. Like I haven't written a book with the word fuck with the U asterisked out in the title, like everybody is. Because I don't want to be like everybody is. And my time management book was not a time management book. It was called Start Now, Get Perfect Later. And my confidence book wasn't called Confidence. It was called I'm Worth More. So I'm trying to serve these big markets, these big needs that help people. But I'm trying to have a new take or maybe a bit of a reinvention.
Just disrupt them.
Yes, but not be so
not for the sake of disruption.
Not disruption for the sake of it, but also not so self-righteous to do something that's too early or too ahead of the time, or I'm so bullish that it's going to work when there's no market for it. Because the commercial element is important. If you want to be a good artist to make good art, then there has to be a commercial element. You've got a sponsor for this show, and you bought all that gear with this sponsor. That's the commercial element helping your art. Because last time we did the podcast, you didn't have all this equipment. So that's the commercial element's important.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rob. It's always a pleasure sitting down with you, and hopefully we'll have you back on the podcast in the not too distant future.
And
I'm not doing a super conference again. I'm not.
You said that last time.
I know I did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. But if I say I'm not doing it again, probably, then I can have a rest for a few years and then come back.
And recharge it. And try not to hump too many trees.
Yes.
Yeah, in the middle.
Yeah, missing the mark.
Brilliant, Rob. Well, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me again.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to everyone listening at home.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.
Thank you for listening or watching today's podcast with Mr. Rob Moore himself, the Disruptive Entrepreneur. We want to know your thoughts, so please get in touch on hello@yoursuccesspodcast.com or get in touch on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or on YouTube.
Indeed, and check out his book, I'm Worth More, which is out on Audible. I think it's out on paperback in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, right.
But to complement that amazing book, we also have our #1 best-selling book, Your Success. Please check it out. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
So thank you for listening and watching today's episode. I've been Mo.
I've been Angelos.
See you again on the next exciting episode.